Welcome back to the Dynasty Nerds YouTube page. I am your host, Garrett Price, and we have a super exciting topic today. Yes, it is mock draft time, and not just any mock draft. We're not necessarily talking your Dynasty mock drafts. We're talking real life NFL mock draft and how that could affect your Dynasty fantasy football teams. I have brought in Mr. Bobby Bishop. You can find him on Twitter @_ Bobby Bishop. Bobby, how you doing, my guy?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. So you're a writer for Dynasty Nerds. How long have you been writing with our site?
So I've been here about 2 to 3 years. Basically, not hitting the articles that hard. Maybe one a month. Until this year, I feel like we got a new editor, Taylor Christensen, if you don't know about that. And he kind of encouraged me. I expressed some interest in NFL draft type stuff, and he just really believed in me and kind of encouraged me to go all in. So I've been doing big boards and mock drafts of just fully focused on the NFL draft, and NFL mock draft 3.0 is just coming out, and I'm just really excited about the work we put in and just how it's turned out and everything like that. So it's been a lot of fun.
I know it's been getting tons of views, tons of clicks. We'll eventually, actually, I think this video will come out after the article's already posted, so you could check the link below and all of the stuff below. The link for that article will be there, so make sure you go there. Go to dynastynerds.com, check out the article. You can get all. What is it? It's 3 rounds, right?
Yeah, 101 picks. So comp picks
picks.
included, everything. So yeah, it's exciting.
Now on this, we're going to focus on the fantasy aspects of this and, quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, tight ends. But you're going through all position groups, all players, right? It's not just the fantasy players.
Exactly. So this draft is really talented in the trenches, which is going to surprise some people when you see some very talented running backs get pushed a little bit farther out down the board. A team might sit here and say, I can get a really good offensive tackle in the first round, and a good running back still going to be there round 2 or 3. And so you might see some of these this is a great running back class, but the depth is honestly going to hurt some of the draft capital for these guys as teams choose other positions early, knowing day 3 running backs are really good this year. And so it's going to be, I think, looking at it overall, the whole NFL draft kind of gives us a better picture of what this capital might be like for some of these dynasty guys.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and get into the running backs then, because I think the running backs are one of the most interesting in this mock draft, because I know from watching a lot of the tape, and then there's a lot of people that you listen to talking about how we could be looking at anywhere from 10, 11 running backs going in the first couple days. You have it as a little bit of a smaller number, and most of those guys going on day 3. So we have 7 running backs in the first 3 rounds, and 5 of those running backs are all in the 3rd round. So is that kind of what you're talking about there? Is you think some of these other positions are going to push a lot of these really talented running backs that we might have been expecting in round 1 or 2 to be pushed down into round 3?
Yeah, and this is not a knock on these guys. I have all but one of them. I have day 2, round 2 grades on them. So we're talking Quinshon Judkins, Caleb Johnson, Travion Henderson, Cam Scattlebow. All of those guys have round 2 grades, but I have them going in round 3 just because the needs of other teams, defensive end, offensive line, different prioritized positions, pushing running back a little bit, knowing even if we don't get one of these guys in round 3, we're still going to get a stud or a very good player in round 4, round 5, round 6.
Yeah.
Very talented backs going on day 3. And so this is more of a positive towards the depth of the running back class than a knock on these guys, because I think these guys are super talented. But just knowing how deep this running back class is, I think teams are going to prioritize other positions early that have a tier gap, that have a fall off, and know that they can still get someone on day 3 who's going to be a large part of their offense and a huge part of a committee.
Love it. Yeah.
So
No,
that's
I think
just
that
my
makes.
thoughts. I could be wrong. I could definitely be wrong, and some of these guys go
Oh,
round 2. Absolutely. But that's just as I was picking these players, it's like such a good edge class and so many good offensive linemen that it just kept being harder and harder. And I kept having these running backs at the top of my board. I'm like, I want to find a spot for them earlier. I want to give them a team. I just don't see who chooses running back until that round 3 you start seeing them pop
seen
off.
a lot of them peppered in. Yeah, and we have 5 guys here in round 3, but the guys that snuck into the first and second round, not a surprise, Ashton Jeanty, you have him going number 20 to the Denver Broncos. Maybe a little bit lower than some are projecting right now, but obviously would be a really good fit for the young, talented running back there. Do you think this is another scenario where there's just so many good players that the running back position maybe not being as essential as it was 20 years ago? Is that what's pushing him down, or do you not see Ashton Jeanty maybe as highly as some other people do?
He's a blue chip running back. He is right up there with Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. I just, once again, don't see who's going to take him in the top 10, who's going to take him in the top 15. Cowboys are an obvious landing spot, but in this mock draft, I have them taking Luther Burden with their 11th overall pick, 12th overall pick in that first round, and then still getting Omarion Hampton in the second round. And so teams are going to sit there like, I could take Ashton Jeanty here and now, or I can wait and go ahead and get one of these studs where the fall off of the position may be earlier and still get one of these really good running backs next round. So I definitely could be wrong about that. Jeanty is like one of 3 or 4 blue chip players in this draft who is truly like an elite version of their position. It's just he plays running back, and this is such a deep class and such a disrespected position that I think that could be why he falls down. And when he gets selected, he'll be a steal, absolutely. But that's why I have him 20th to the Broncos.
I love some of these landing spots. Some of them are really, really juicy. So we mentioned Ashton Jeanty to the Broncos. Dallas Cowboys, obviously, they've needed a running back for a few years now. Getting Omarion Hampton at pick 44 is kind of in that mid-second round range. Omarion Hampton, full skill set on display there, can do just about anything you would ask him to do. Looking at probably 6 foot, 220, 225, very big, prototypical back. Then we get into the third round, and a lot of really, really exciting names. You have the Raiders selecting Quinshon Judkins. Obvious tie there with the Raiders because of Chip Kelly going to the Raiders, former Ohio State offensive coordinator. Is that part of the reason that you paired those guys up together, or did it just work out beautifully?
Yeah, just a marriage of best player available, a position of need, and obviously the ties with offensive coordinator. He's my running back 3 in this draft. They really need a running back. He was somehow still available at the top of the third. I say somehow, but I was the one doing the mock draft. I think it's a perfect pick if he's still there, early third round. Obviously, Travion Henderson also having the Ohio State ties. I just see Quinshon Judkins as more of a 3-down back. I would want Travion Henderson, if I have him, I would want him paired with another back as a part of a more like a Thunder, Lightning, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery type scenario. Sure. Whereas Judkins, I truly believe you can get him 20 to 25 touches a game and him be your featured workhorse running back, which is exactly what the Raiders need.
Love it. Love it. At 83, we have Caleb Johnson. I know that's a great value for Pittsburgh. Keeps Caleb Johnson in the black and yellow. 3 picks later, Travion to the Chargers, another team that really desperately needs a running back, assuming they don't re-sign J.K. Dobbins. Cleveland, they've lost Nick Chubb. They get a Cam Skattebo, which honestly, Skattebo is the Cleveland type of player, just kind of a gritty, nasty workhorse type guy. So I love the fit there. And then Dylan Sampson going to the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings could desperately use a running back, and so he would be a very fun fit with Minnesota. If there was a player that you wanted to get in at the running back position, but just didn't have the room or space, who was the guy that you wanted to get in that just missed the cut for you?
I'd say Devin Neal out of Kansas was that next guy off for me. Once again, a lot of good players. I really like a lot of the power backs on day three. I mean, you have your Kyle Monangai, you have Rocket Sanders, you have
Ollie Gordon.
Khalil Munnings, yeah, Ollie Gordon. You have a lot of good power backs as a part of the committees, but there's not as many receiving backs. So Devin Neal can do a little bit of both. Good at catching the ball out in space. I think he'd be a fun guy early. Another guy, and I'm blanking on the name, SMU's running back, was receiver. Brashard Smith was a receiver, switched to running back this season, just a really explosive player. And so there's a lot of the power backs on day three, but not as many as the receiving backs. And I easily could see one of those two guys slipping into day two.
Love it. Love it. Let's switch positions here. Let's go to the quarterback position. And you actually have quite a few names going inside of these first 3 rounds. Not a big surprise. 2 of the first 3 picks off the board. Cam Ward to the Browns at 2, and then at 3, Shedeur Sanders to the New York Giants. If that's the case, and you're on the clock right now in your dynasty draft, which one is more appealing to you with these landing spots?
Just landing spot, player talent, everything. I got to go Cam Ward. I got to go Cam Ward of the 2. Just a fun player to watch, gets the ball down the field, and especially with the Browns landing spot. Some people are going to be down on that, and that could actually cause him to fall some in rookie drafts. People just think the Browns are not in a good spot as an organization at the moment. But you look at the receivers. He's going to be throwing to Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, Elijah Moore. I have them adding Cam Scattleboo as running back. David Njoku as a tight end. Good O-line, getting healthy, coming back. I mean, I think it's a good situation. And so having him come in, I think that would be a fun landing spot, and just see him drive the ball down the field, make plays when things break down, get outside the pocket. Really good at throwing just off platform. As we see sometimes that just ability to create can be very valuable to NFL offenses. And Cam Ward has that 100%.
Love it. We have, 5 other running backs going either in the 2nd round or the 3rd round. So we've got Jackson Dart to Tennessee at pick 35. Pittsburgh taking Jalen Milroe. Could be a really fun addition there at pick 52. And then at the end of the 3rd, we've got a few going. So the Rams taking Quinn Ewers, Will Howard going to the Jets, and then San Fran taking Dylan Gabriel. Of all of those picks, let's say all of those go to those spots, and that's how the actual draft works out. Who would you be drafting as QB3?
I got to say, in fantasy, I'd be taking Jalen Milroe just because the legs are such an asset. If someone's taking him in the 2nd round, I think they'll show somewhat of a willingness to revamp their offense and add in more design quarterback runs. Specifically Steelers, I had the mindset, imagine they bring back Justin Fields on a 1-2 year contract and draft Jalen Milroe. They're going to completely revamp their offense, design runs, allow Fields for a year to learn that offense, and let Jalen Milroe kind of throw Fields out in the fire, let Milroe kind of learn the offense, and then he could come out and just be a dominant dynasty asset. We'll see him get the rushing yards, the rushing touchdowns, but also I think he's being slept on just as a thrower of the football. Needs work with the decision-making 100%, and I see that, and I think his vision of the field also needs some work, but when he pulls the trigger, he has an absolute cannon. I'm not saying he's Anthony Richardson, but he's somewhere in between Anthony Richardson and Malik Willis. He's like the middle ground where he has the tools. Let him develop and let him showcase those tools, and you could have a really special quarterback.
Yeah, definitely upside, galore with Milrow, but will it all translate? That's the biggest question. That's why he slips to round 2 instead of going in round 1. So this wide receiver class is being talked about as a weaker wide receiver class overall. How do you feel about this class? Do you agree with that narrative that it's a little bit of a weaker class, or how do you feel about it?
I think we've been spoiled the last few years with some dominant receiver classes, and this one will be a step back. I definitely can acknowledge that. I think there's a clear top 3 with receivers, assuming Travis Hunter plays both or plays receiver. Clear top 3, and then after that you have a tier 2, Egbuka and Golden, who are going to be really good wide receiver 2s on their team. And then after that, it's really pick your poison. Maybe even you could call it a dart throw, where it's like these guys. There's a lot of dudes and a lot of different skill sets, a lot of different offenses they could fit. Who can you get that fits your offense? Who can you get that you're going to get the ball to, get them opportunities? And I think some of those guys are going to pop. I just don't know which ones and which landing spots they receive and everything like that.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. So you mentioned before Luther Burden went to the Cowboys at pick 12. Tennessee takes Travis Hunter number 1 overall. I think right now most people are assuming it's going to be mostly DB with some wide receiver, but we have to see. It's going to depend on the team and where he ends up going. You have the Raiders going with Tet McMillan at wide receiver with their 6th overall pick. Tampa Bay, then the other first round. So 4 first round receivers or 3.5, depending on how you look at Travis Hunter. Emeka Buka going to Tampa Bay there. Filling in, I'm assuming, for Chris Godwin. This is your assumption that Chris Godwin is leaving with them making this pick?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mentioned that in my write-up that obviously Chris Godwin's a free agent. He's had some injury issues. I think he still gets a pretty hefty contract in the 18 to 20 range. And if the Bucs don't feel comfortable paying him that, they can easily just come in, grab Egbuka. Egbuka is pro ready. Egbuka is a hard worker. He's going to be just your locker room golden boy, where you look and you see who's doing the right thing, who's here early, who's in the gym, who's working hard. Emeka Egbuka is ready to be a pro last year.
Yeah.
And so the fact that he's coming in, he's going to fit into that exact same Chris Godwin role. Give him some slot snaps, give him some outside snaps, get him the ball. He is a smooth route runner. He's someone who's going to be trusted. Very few drops. He'll get in space and he'll rack up the PPR points 100%.
Nice. After that, we have Matthew Golden going number 40 overall to the Saints. The Saints obviously could use some pass catchers. They do have Chris Olave and they do have Rashid Shaheed, 2 very good players, but both guys a little bit injury prone, a little bit banged up. So Golden going there. And then 3 more guys in the late 2nd round. We have Houston Texans taking Trey Harris. Washington Commanders take Jaden Higgins. I'm very curious who goes to the Commanders. So obviously that's a great landing spot with an obvious need there. So that would be huge for him if he can go in the 2nd round to that team. And then the Buffalo Bills taking Alec Ayumanor from Stanford. All of those guys are 2nd round receivers. Who do you like the most? What landing spot? All of that. Which one has you the most excited?
I mean, that's tough. Those all 3 Texans, Commanders, Bills, all 3 are tied to great young quarterbacks, very talented guys. I'll go Jaden Higgins just because I love both his size and agility. You don't see 6'4" guys move that smoothly very often. Just he has great just side to side cuts, and it's going to translate to really great route running and separation at the next level. And so having him on the other side of Terry McLaurin tied to Jaden Daniels, who's emerged as one of the best quarterbacks in the league, regardless of age, and then on a rookie contract, be able to fill out their team, fill out their O-line with some of that money. I mean, you're looking at a really elite landing spot for Jaden Higgins. And so, I mean, all three of those guys have great landing spots and are very talented right there at the end of the second round. But I got to go with Jaden Higgins.
Nice. Going into the third round, we've got a lot of names that ended up in the third round at wide receiver. Isaiah Bond goes to the Patriots. Carolina Panthers get Jalen Royals. Jalen Noel, one of the standouts from the Senior Bowl, he goes to the Arizona Cardinals. Tez Johnson reunites with his adopted brother in Denver and joins Bo Nix at pick 85. Jacksonville gets the Senior Bowl MVP Jack Beck. And then the Rams take Xavier Restrepo out of Miami. Let's touch on Tez Johnson for a second here. So he had, by all reports, a lot of good things to see at the Senior Bowl, but the 5'9", 156, to me, that worries me. And I think it would be hard for team to take him outside of day 3 because of that weight. Does that not concern you as much, or do you think NFL teams are not going to worry about that as much?
I think if there were 2 landing spots I like with him. Texans obviously need a receiver. They were able to get one earlier, but almost viewing him as a Tank Dell replacement. We don't know Tank Dell's future, but I mean, just horrific injury. We don't know that he's going to play much ball in the future. And they obviously had a good fit between him and CJ Stroud, everything like that. They were obviously able to get receiver earlier. And so as he's falling, I just wondered, Bo Nix was already able to talk the Broncos into one Oregon receiver, getting them to draft Troy Franklin last year. I think Tez Johnson's better than Troy Franklin. And it's his brother. I imagine he goes up to the Broncos and he's pounding the table for his brother. And if he does that now as the established quarterback of the team, and they actually want him a lot, right here in the third round is very close to where Tank Dell was selected just a few years ago, before obviously he established himself as a good pro. I think he has elite speed, elite movement skills, extreme hard worker. Obviously, you can't coach up the size. He no matter what you do, he's not going to get any taller or anything like that. But just the chemistry between him and his brother, you're not going to be able to find that anywhere else. And so if Bo Nix really slams the table for his brother and they want to appease their starting quarterback, this is where you have to get him, is right here in the third round.
All right, let's move on to the tight end position here. We've got 2 first-rounders. Indianapolis going after Tyler Warren. Was listening to, who was it, Todd McShay the other day, and talking about the similarities that they see in Tyler Warren with Rob Gronkowski. Do you see some of that similarity, and is that why you have him going inside the top 15?
I see some of that. I don't know that he is quite Rob Gronkowski, just because honestly, he's it's different. The movement skills, you can get the ball to Warren wherever. You can just direct snap. You can run screens. Gronkowski never really got the ball in his hands quite like that. His other former tight end teammate, and now I'm blanking of his name.
Tyler Johnson?
No, I mean Gronkowski's teammate when he
Aaron
first got to the
Hernandez?
Patriots. Aaron Hernandez. Obviously, you don't want to comp him to the human being, but just the ability to get the ball in space and just make things happen, whether it's a direct snap or whether you're able to hand the ball off to him or whether you're able to run screens or whatever. I don't see a ton of Ron Gronkowski. Obviously, they're both massive. They both have ball skills. Both can make things happen after the catch. But Warren, you just want to get the ball in his hands any way you can. And I don't see them being quite the same. It's tough with pro comps because I don't know that there's ever going to be another Rob Gronkowski. He's
Sure.
one of one. And so it really is always hard to make those pro comparisons perfectly.
At 22, the Los Angeles Chargers get Colston Loveland. Makes a lot of sense. He goes back to his former head coach in Jim Harbaugh, and obviously there's a need there. if these are the two landing spots, I'm going to put you on the spot again. Warren or Loveland, who would you be taking first in your dynasty drafts?
I would definitely be taking Warren early, especially if it's tight end premium.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I see him as a top 6 dynasty pick in tight end premium, especially one QB leagues, tight end premium. He's just someone, he's going to get so many catches. He's going to get so many touches that you just want him on your fantasy team.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Oh, yeah?
With the Indianapolis Colts landing spot, we know that all of their receiving pass catchers took a little bit of a dip. Whereas the Chargers, he gets his former coach and he gets Justin Herbert. Is that enough to tip the scales, or do you still think just the talent is that much different?
I mean, I think Warren is the type of guy you have to scheme for. Like, if they don't sit in there and say, we're redesigning this offense, we're getting the ball to this tight end. And we've seen teams that should do that don't. When you think of the Falcons drafting Pitts and then sitting there and not designing plays to get to him, and then ultimately getting your head coach, Arthur Smith, fired, et cetera, et cetera. We can see some teams not fit their scheme for their player, but Tyler Warren is the type of guy that I want to sit there and fit my scheme for him. Anthony Richardson, I will admit, he's not always the best at the underneath passes. You see him excel either very short behind the line of scrimmage, or you see him like deep balls, getting the balls in Alec Pierce's hands. But typically on that in-between intermediate is just a range where he doesn't always excel. And so, yes, that might be stressful of a landing spot, but I feel like they have to scheme a way to make this work. Loveland definitely would be a great dynasty pick, because when I draft someone, I want them to have a great year one, where if I don't think they're going to have a great year one, I'm not drafting them, because I can trade with them after a buy window after the first year. Usually that's how tight ends might be, but Loveland already knows this offense. He's going to come in. He has Justin Herbert throwing him the ball. Obviously, that's a great landing spot, but I just think Warren is that special of a talent at tight end, former quarterback, just the movement skills, just turns into an absolute freight train with the ball in his hands, just running guys over. I think Warren is so special. I want him on any tight end premium leagues I have. I want him right away in round 1.
Nice. Love it. We got a second round tight end. Only one of them, though, Elijah Aroro, 6 foot 4.5, and then he weighed in plus 250. So really good measurements for a guy that has really, really good movement skills. Showed that off at the Senior Bowl. Harold Fannin and Mason Taylor go to the Patriots and the Bengals in the 3rd round. Two very different players, but both very exciting upside tight end. So, Bobby, that wraps up the fantasy relevant names for the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft. We asked this real quick. One last question for you, and we'll get you out of here. We asked it Absolutely. At the running back, but at the other positions, what's one other name that maybe isn't quite in here right now, but you could see rising and being inside these top 3 rounds when it comes to draft day?
So Savion Williams was so close to making this cut. So honestly, I debated him for the 49ers at the very end of the 3rd round. And
as a
I gave
Debo replacement kind of thing?
Absolutely. And I had them taking Dylan Gabriel as almost just a chip with the negotiations with Brock Purdy, and also just as a high-level backup right away for Brock Purdy. But that was a heavily debated pick. I thought that they might bring Savion Williams in. Obviously, Debo wants out, and it seems like Debo's not going to still be a receiver there. It's just hard to know where to place a guy that you have to scheme for. Savion Williams is someone who isn't just going to come in and just say, okay, let's just become just a normal receiver. No, he's a special talent, but he's someone you have to scheme for. You have to get him the ball in dump offs or in screens or handoffs or whatever. And the thing is, the 49ers have that role ready as Debo Samuel's role. And so obviously it's just hard to know. Are they really going to want a third to fourth round guy that they're going to scheme around for? But Savion Williams, if he gets in the right system, if he gets the opportunities, if he gets someone who's going to force feed him the ball, he could end up as a very, very special fantasy player.
Love it. Bobby Bishop, you can find him on Twitter @_Bobby Bishop. Bobby, thank you so much for joining me today. Anything else you want to plug real quick before we get you out of here?
Just keep an eye out for future articles. So we're really going to start grinding on the final rankings, positional rankings. Going to go through each position, and then it's going to end up with a top 250 to top 300 big board coming in early April, and a 7-round mock draft in early April. So I'm going to be on my grind here for the next 2 months. So keep an eye out. Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you for everything you do for Dynasty Nerds, and it's definitely a great opportunity to come on the show. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate you guys for watching. Once again, reminder, click below. We're going to have that article in the description below, so you can find that there. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff here on our page. And we will be back like we are just about every day with something brand new for you to chew on here at Dynasty Nerds.